I truly believe that discovering what we will be discussing in this video today about the art of living is one of the most valuable things we can bring to our lives. Let me begin by asking you, do you believe everything your mind tells you? We'll come back to that later. Let's discuss the art of living in the next few minutes here and now. What's this technique? It's not so much of a doing, but more of a practice. It's a little awareness we can bring to ourselves that allows us to decrease mental conflicts and increase our joy, our inner peace, our happiness, and our overall satisfaction, even with everything that's going on in the world today. I really wish this would be taught to us at a younger age. So stick around till the end of the video because I'll be sharing with you the easiest techniques and practices I have found that helps me to live in the art of living. Hi, it's Serene Awareness, a community where we discuss all things awareness. If you want to live more freed from mental conflicts, this is your hub right here. Join our community, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification button so you'll be the first to access videos when we upload them. I became fascinated by this topic, the art of living, after listening to a Krishnamurti talk, and I thought how interesting because we have the art of literature, we have the art of history, we have the art of painting, we have the art of cooking, but we don't necessarily have an art of living, which is what is, I feel, so essential to our livelihoods, to our lives. And so I really dove into it. And today I'm going to be sharing with you the tools and techniques I found that really helps me to be in the art of living as often as possible. But the goal here is to live without mental conflicts. So increasing being in the art of living and decreasing mental conflicts, which we'll get into and explain. If I were to say, what is the art of living? What would your answer be? Type it below. Let me know. I'm curious. Let's understand the real problem so that the solution of the practice makes more sense. How many of you experience your mind where it loves to be angry? Your mind loves to complain. It loves to get upset. It loves just a dissatisfaction with life. And it's never satisfied. Raise your hand if you ever experience that in your mind. Okay, so yes, it is always insatiable because we're trapped by the mind, which grabs us and controls us and tugs us here, there, and everywhere. And we go along with the mind because we've learned to trust it. But are we really benefiting from our minds being angry all the time, being upset about things all the time? Is that really benefiting us? If so, how? Our mind creates a lot of unnecessary problems. So life becomes full of problems. This overactive self-concern, self-centeredness, the mind doesn't care about anything. It only cares that it has control over your every waking moment. Hence the monkey mind. Our mind likes to be in control of us. It likes to play out its agendas. And these agendas may look like worrying, anxiety, fear, overthinking, always thinking, making us feel like we have to keep doing more and more and more. We're never enough. Making us feel self-centered, overly self-centered about what people think about us, how they look at us. Well, I invite you to try one day of not being self-centered. Self-centeredness is just working in the background. The absorption of one's self is the opposite of the art of living. This control that the mind has over us equals the self-centeredness I'm talking about here. Why is that? Well, because self-centeredness is the root cause of mental conflicts. And When I say mental conflicts, I mean the mind has opposing elements of desires. So it desires one thing, yet it has an opposition to one thing or another. For example, let's say you're trying to start a project or finish a project or even start a exercise routine program in your life. And so that would be you're desiring one thing in the mind, but what happens usually is the mind will come up with all of these excuses and problems and scenarios that prevents you from moving forward into the direction of the initial desire you have, which was to create a project or continue a project or start an exercise routine that's healthy for you. So this is just one example of how the mind comes up with always opposing itself, and it's tormenting to us. It's like an endless corridor of duality. We're being pulled left and right, forward and backwards. The self-centeredness or self-obsession is the mental conflicts we live in. When we are in self-centeredness, we have officially removed ourselves from the art of living, the joy of life, so to say. By nature, humans are self-centered, self-absorbed. Maybe it's a survival mechanism. And you may say, well, yeah, that's okay. But if you look back at your life and you want to say, is my mind really serving me the best way it can? And you will soon recognize that we ourselves have upgraded. Our lives have upgraded, but our minds have not really upgraded yet. The mind conjures up all of these things that keep us completely absorbed here in the mind, missing out on the present moment where life is really happening, because, like I said, it's just not updated. This control keeps us in the mind's agenda, which usually makes us think or believe that it is going to solve whatever the problem is or the agenda it has outlined as a problem. Tricks us into thinking it's going to solve a problem, that it's going to somehow, in the circles it brings us into, or the tunnels of duality, meaning that there's those conflicts between desiring one thing and another, the opposing of everything that we want, is how it traps us. And that is what I mean by self-centeredness. And when we're talking about mental conflicts here and how that plays into, or actually not play into, the art of living. There is a time and place and system for solving problems. So there's a system where you would sit and solve a problem, write down ideas, come up with solutions and so forth, but not in here. That's a trickery. So what's the solution? How can we really, truly be in the art of living? Like I said in the beginning, it's not so much of a doing, but it's more of an awareness to the mind that you practice. Now, this becomes something you notice. So you watch your mind, you watch and you're aware. You become aware and you're watching your mind. When it starts to pull you in a different direction than what you're doing, and here it is, you're going to feel when it starts to, when you recognize, so again, this is a recognition and an awareness. So you start to recognize your mind when it starts to tug you and pull you in different directions. So it's a tug war, it's pulling you, it's enticing you to go with it. And you know that it never really solves the problem. So you have to go back and answer that question. Do you believe everything your mind tells you? No, I do not believe things my mind tell me. I know that my mind likes having control over me, so I don't go along with my mind. I want to be in the driver's seat. I want to be in the driver's seat, not my mind, which is what usually happens. So, how do we get into the driver's seat? We become very aware of our minds, and we become very watchful and recognize when the mind starts playing its little tactics and tricks on us and tries to pull us here, there, and everywhere with it. So we say, no, no thank you. And in that split second, it's not enough to recognize and be aware, but bring your attention to the present moment. And the best way you can do that is by tactile sensation of your own body, of your own senses. That is so because the mind cannot focus totally on one thought if you are having a tactile sensation. So for example, if you are typing on the keyboard, feel your fingers touch the keyboard. Feel that sensation of your finger touching the keyboard. Another thing that I learned in the Buddhist way is they do a quick rub on their arms or their legs sensation, and that your mind, it's difficult for it to focus on both things at the same time. So that's a very powerful practice. So another thing you can do, obviously, if you don't want to look like you're crazy, if you're around other people, is focus on the air as it enters your nostrils, the warm air or cool air as it's entering your nostrils. Anything that can bring you some healthy sensations. So get up, move. Any of these things can break that with the mind. And so another thing that happens with the mind is that it will go around and come around and then try you again, try to get you to come along with it again. So every time it does it, this is a continual practice. It's something that you become aware of, you recognize, and you just don't go along with it. You do little techniques that work for you. You probably heard a lot of other people talk about tapping. The tapping technique is very powerful for pulling you out of your mind. And, so every time it circles around, and it may be 1 minute, it can be 15 minutes, it can be half an hour, it can be several hours, it could be the next day, it could be the next week, and something just, the mind comes back in with its little thing. Just don't go along with it. Remember, there's a texture to the mind when it wants to pull you in. If you can recognize this certain texture it has, you know it inherently that's the mind trying to pull you and trick you. Because the mind is very clever, right? It knows that we trust it in some way, but we know now that the mind doesn't always serve us. Once you start to practice this, you will start to see how much more at ease and how much more inner peace and joy you have in your life. And this is the art of living, decreasing those mental conflicts, those tug wars, those circling patterns of thinking, all of those things. When you decrease that, you are in the art of living. When you get pulled out, you are not satisfied with life. You are going to say no thank you to the mind. No thank you. I don't want to go there. I know where that leads. I know I'm going to end up feeling terrible if I go down this road with you again, mind. So So you just say, no, thank you, because you've been there 1,000 times or more and you don't want to go there again, because you always end up feeling bad. We always end up feeling bad when we go along in the negative thinking of the mind. So the art of living, remember this, is having less and less mental conflicts. Make this your practice. Bring awareness. Recognize. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like it, give it a share to anyone you think it can benefit. It really helps the channel out, and I'll see you next time.